Taxes feel like a maze and lead to a lot of questions. I'm Harrison Patton, founder of Kaizen Accounting, where we help provide entrepreneurs with tax and accounting services to help them chase their entrepreneurial dreams. Today, I'm answering the 12 most asked tax questions by business owners and giving my answers and my opinions on them. So, let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. Number 1, what business expenses can I deduct? This is a super common question in the tax world because a lot of these online entrepreneurs hear these videos where it's this tax professional who is trying to advertise all these creative tax strategies where they're saying that you can deduct things like a dog because it's your guard dog. And while I love a creative strategy, I think it's also important to be reasonable with it and stay within the guidelines of the tax code. So the IRS tax code says that anything that is ordinary and necessary in order for you to conduct business and to produce revenue for your business is able to be viewed as a business expense. From home offices to travel to equipment, all of these contribute to your business. So for example, if you buy a $1,000 MacBook in order for you to run your business off of, this can be a tax deduction for your business and for you as an individual. It's key here that we're tracking receipts and we're entering in a business purpose for each thing. So like for meals, you want to just put what you discussed and what made that meal a business expense. And a word of caution here as we're talking about basic deductions, kind of turning some of your personal expenses into business expenses, is not to commingle your funds, because by doing this it muddies the waters and it kind of raises red flags for the IRS if they're reviewing your documents. And kind of makes it harder for you to justify that something was a business expense if you're paying for it with your personal expenses, personal funds. Number 2, should my business be an LLC, S-Corp, or C-Corp? So each individual situation is a little bit different, so you kind of have to look at them situation by situation. However, for the majority of people, a regular LLC is definitely the starting point that you want to start at. Now, this gives you all the asset protection and gives you your business a legal entity. However, once we're starting to net in that $40,000 area of net income, you want to look into making the S-Corp election, because once you start getting a higher amount of net income, you're going to be paying a lot of self-employment tax. And the S-Corp is a strategy to save on self-employment tax for tax purposes while still guaranteeing all of the same legal protection that you had with a regular LLC. I very rarely see people elect to be a C-Corp. This is for very big corporations and very large businesses bringing in millions and millions of dollars, and for very rare other cases. So most people, probably 90% of people, aren't going to need to do this, and they'll just want to stick with a regular LLC and then progress to being taxed as an S-Corp once they hit that $40,000 profit mark. Number 3, how do I handle payroll taxes for employees? So on the outside, payroll can seem like it's kind of a headache and kind of seems scary, but really there's 3 main steps that come to it, and it makes it a much easier process than you'd imagine. So first, you're going to withhold your federal and state FICA and FUTA taxes from all of your wages that you pay your employees. You'll file Form 941 quarterly and file Form 940 at the year's end. This is just reporting your wages that you paid to your employees. Now, contractors, completely different situation. You'll pay them 1099 NECs at year's end. This just documents all the payments you paid to contractors. So it's completely separate from your 941s and 940s. There's lots of software out there nowadays that actually makes this process very easy. My personal favorite is Gusto. It's just the one that I have found to be the simplest while also being the most effective at getting done what I need to get done. I have no affiliation with them or anything, but I've just found it to be the best software. And another key with this is to make sure that you avoid missing deadlines so that you don't have to pay any penalties, because there are some pretty harsh penalties for missing your quarterly filings. Number 4, what 1099 form do I give to contractors? So the form that you're going to give any contractors that perform services for you is the 1099 NEC. This is the one for contractors. There's other 1099s such as 1099 MISC or miscellaneous, which was where you report things like gambling and other more miscellaneous income. These 1099 NECs are due by January 31st of the following year to any contractor that you paid over $600 for any services. Number 5, is it worth it to look into tax credits for my business? Many small businesses can really benefit from looking into tax credits. So there's different ones for like my service-based businesses. We can look at the work opportunity tax credit. One that I love for software companies is R&D credits, so research and development for software companies. And then there's other smaller niche ones like hiring veterans for your business that you can look into if you wanted. And yeah, these are great for your business if you can find ones that apply. The reason these are so powerful is because they are a dollar for dollar deduction off of your tax liability. Number 6, how do I file taxes for my side hustle if I don't have an LLC yet? So this is actually super simple. All you'll do is you'll file a Schedule C along with your 1040 that notes all of your income and expenses from your side hustle. And then you'll also pay the 15.3% self-employment tax on all of this income. One thing that I really want to stress to y'all, if you're running a side hustle, even if you don't have a formal LLC, you need to be tracking expenses so that you can document what was for your business. This makes year-end tax planning a lot easier, and it makes you able to expense things rather than just having income on that Schedule C, and overall lowers your tax liability. A side hustle grants you all of the same rights to tax deductions as a formal LLC or any other business structure would. Number 7, what records do I need to keep for taxes? So you need to keep income statements with revenues and expenses, bank statements, and any loans or debt that you have. All of these make it easier once you hand it off to your accountant so that they can start preparing your actual tax forms. Additionally, you want to keep receipts and other documentation that can help substantiate your stance on any business expenses that you're willing to take. You can use software like QuickBooks to really make this process a lot more seamless and make it go a lot easier, a lot smoother, and really just keep from having such a headache of a massive Excel sheet that documents all of your business expenses and all of your income. Trust me when I say this, as an accountant, it is much easier of a year-end task to prepare returns and makes my life and whoever your accountant is, or if you're self-preparing, it makes your life so much easier if you have everything documented. Number 8, how do I file taxes if I have multiple businesses? So if you're a single member LLC in all of these businesses, then what you'll do is you'll just have multiple Schedule Cs for each of these businesses, documenting what income and expenses you had from business A, business B, business C, and so on. If you're in partnership LLCs, then what you'll do is you'll receive a K1 from each of these partnerships, and each of these businesses' income and expenses will go on Schedule E, line 28, and then Schedule 1, line 5. And these all flow back into your personal 1040 tax return. Number 9, do I have to pay quarterly estimated taxes? So most people will have to pay quarterly taxes. If you're a W-2, if you're solely a W-2 employee, you probably don't have to because your employer will likely withhold enough taxes for you to not have to do this. However, self-employed individuals who owe the IRS over $1,000 will have to pay quarterly taxes to the government every year. So you'll pay these April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January of the following year 15th. This should be at least 90% of your current year taxable income or 100% of what was shown as your taxable income on your prior year return. Number 10, how do I qualify for the home office deduction? Well, first, what you want to do is you want to have a space that is solely and exclusively used for business use. So you can have a spare bedroom that is used as an office for you running your business, or I've seen other people get creative and find other ways of marking off from the rest of the house and making a small section that they use as a home office. The key is to make the area for business exclusive use only. Another caveat is that it should also be the principal place that you run the business. And so there's 2 strategies that you can do. So going with the first method, which is going to be the most conventional and most used one, if you had a 200 square foot office, you'd get a $1,000 tax deduction from that. It's important to note that the limit for the home office deduction is limited to $1,500 per year. Number 11, how do I avoid an IRS audit? So there's several things that tip the IRS to make them want to investigate your return. Everything's based off of a ratio scale. They don't release what exactly those ratios are, but we do know that it's based off certain ratios. And so one thing that you want to avoid is taking unreasonably large deductions. An example of this is you don't want to have too large of a meals expense on your tax return. This is one that I point to because it's very common for people to have a massive bill of meals that they've turned into business meals while their taxable income is not nearly high enough to justify having that large of meals expense. And then there's other things like reporting round numbers, which just aren't common in the real world for you to have exactly $100,000 of income. Normally it would be like 100,523 or something, you know. So you don't want to round up or round down. And another thing is also unreported income. So if somebody provides a 1099 NEC and you don't report that income on your tax return, that can usually tip off the IRS. It's also another thing to remember that getting audited is not a bad thing. Every business is going to get audited if they last long enough. But it's important to remember that only 0.4% of small businesses are going to get audited every single year. As long as you keep your records tidy and you're able to point directly to a certain expense if the IRS questions anything and bring it up and justify it and say why it was a business purpose, you're going to be more than fine. Number 12, is hiring an accountant worth it over just using one of the DIY software? So I have two opinions on this. So it kind of depends on your situation. So if you are a simple W-2 employee and all you have is that, then obviously I think using TurboTax or any of the do-it-yourself software for free is obviously the better option because your return is going to be very simple and you don't probably need to pay an accountant a bunch of money to spend time to prepare the returns. However, if you're W-2 plus a side hustle or simply self-employed, then you want to look into hiring an accountant or a tax professional to work with in preparing your returns. So I think that this is a better way to keep accurate books, implement tax strategy, and ultimately have your returns prepared for you because they will have a little bit more complexity and you want to ensure their accuracy. And one thing I would stress here is that you want to work with a proactive tax professional, not a reactive accountant. I think that this is where a lot of people go wrong. They get an accountant who just wants to get the numbers, create the return, rather than working with a tax professional that is going to work with them side by side and find them tax strategies throughout the year to implement to lower their tax bill. Well, there you have it. That is 12 tax questions answered for all of my business owners out there. So let's start planning our taxes proactively rather than being reactive and scrambling at the end of the year. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe and check out other videos like this one for more tax tips in the future. I hope you enjoy.